What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be taking a little bit of a look at the deck that's gone and won in the Poland Vault Tour in the Archon format. That is to say, the format where you bring your very best deck and you see how it stacks up to everybody else's very best deck. It is Litmus, the Stonekeeper of Joy, and it is a Dis Logos Shadows deck. We are seeing a lot of love for logos lately, and we might as well point out right off the bat, yeah, it's a Time Traveler deck. Time Traveler's good, if I'm honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. Time Traveler is a very good card, as is Help from Future South, which always get bundled with it. Time Traveler, when you play it, you get an amber bonus and you draw 2 cards. It's a 2-power creature. And Help from Future South, when you play it, gives you an amber bonus and searches your deck and your discard pile for a Time Traveler and puts it into your hand. So playing the 2 of them together gives you 2 amber and 2 cards. Tell me how that's bad. But we've talked a lot about Time Traveler on this channel, so let's look at the other cards in the logo suite. It's got library access. Library access is the other card which really makes a huge difference when it comes to, well, just playing the game. Library access says that every time you play a card for the remainder of your turn, you draw a card. Now, to be fair, it has received an errata, which is to say that now, when you play it, you purge it, i.e. you can play it once, but then that's it, you can't play it anymore, you've played it, it gets purged, you can't reuse it and keep going. Okay, fair enough. But you still get that one great turn. And what I really love here is that you also have a phase shift in your deck. Phase shift says that during this turn, you may play 1 non-logos card. So not only are you drawing a card every time you play a card, but now you can play a Dis or Shadows card. And of course, play library access. And then you play phase shift, draw a card, play a discard, draw a card. I love it. And as if that draw power wasn't enough, we've also got Mother. During your draw card step, refill your hand to 1 additional card. So you just draw another one at the end of every turn. And we've got Library of Babel, an artifact that lets you draw an extra card during your turn. And all of a sudden, we're sat here going, hang on a second. That is a lot of draw power. That is a huge amount of draw power. And that is one of the things that this deck has. Logos has a few tricks. It draws, it archives, etc. But the best thing about it a lot of the time is drawing, and that's what we see here as well. Although if you're in the mood for archiving, we do have a copy of Lab Work that when you play it lets you archive a card. And we do have Ganymede Archivist that when you reap, you get to archive a card. So it's not like that's the only option. Now, we do also have a couple of other tricks in here as well. We've got a Twin Bolt Mission, which gives you an amber bonus and then deals 2 damage to each of 2 different creatures. And a Bat Drone that's got Skirmish. And when you fight, you steal an amber. So if you start the fight, you're going to survive because of Skirmish. And you're going to steal an amber. Logos aren't famous for their amber control. It's not really the reason we play logos, but it's nice to have a little bit in here regardless. And the other thing in here, which I absolutely adore, 2 Titan Mechanic. Now, Titan Mechanic is a double-sided card, so you've got to be a little bit careful about how you play it. When it's on a flank, it reduces the cost of forging a key by 1. So if you put 1 on each flank, keys cost 4. Now you play Titan Mechanic, then it's your opponent's turn. Your opponent gets the first chance to forge a key after you play Titan Mechanic, so you got to be a little bit careful. But if your opponent's not in a position to forge, you can end your turn whacking 1 of these down on each flank and going, come on then, can you stop me? Because my keys are costing 4 next turn. It's going to be kind of funny. I love that idea. Moving into Dis, we're looking for Disruption. It's what they do, and we have it. Not as much as we sometimes do, but there's a little bit in here. We've got Tentacus. Your opponent must pay you an amber in order to use an artifact. We've got Toxin. When you reap, your opponent discards a random card from their hand. We've got Fear that lets you return an enemy creature to your opponent's hand. Preferably something like Mother, so they don't draw as many extra cards, rather than something like Urchin, where when they play it back down, they're going to steal an extra amber. We've got Mind Barb, where your opponent discards a random card from their hand, which works very nicely with the aforementioned Toxin. And we're doing all right here. It's okay. It's not amazing. But what we do have is really good amber control. It's not generally what this is known for, but here we got 2 copies of Charette. When you play it, you capture 3 amber. And yeah, sure, when your opponent destroys it, they get the amber back. But there's still that turn where they don't have it. You can play Charette, steal 3 amber. Your opponent can steal it back the very next turn, but they still have had to not forge a key because they didn't have it at the start of their turn. Then there's 2 copies of Shula that lets you steal an amber if your opponent has 4 or more. And we've got a surprisingly large amount here of amber control within this. Now, we've also got some really good other cards as well. Dominator Bauble, which is our World's invite for the first World Championships next year, is an artifact that lets you use a friendly creature, so that gives you some house cheating. Library of the Damned goes along with Library of Babel and lets you archive a card. That's lovely. Like, really lovely. As a side note, there were 3 cards called Library something in Call of the Archons, and they're all in this deck. And this is nice. You've got a bit of archiving in logos, and then you've got a bit of archiving in dis as well. We've got Dust Imp. When it's destroyed, you gain 2 amber. That's quite nice for gaining a bunch of amber. And then Flame Reaved, the only upgrade in the entire deck, that gives a creature +2 power and hazardous 2, while giving an amber bonus. Before it's attacked, you deal 2 damage to the attacking enemy. This is a really nice dis suite. It's not as disruptive as some we've been seeing in the past. There's no Ember Imp, there's no Succubus, etc. But what we do have is we've got amber control, little bit of archiving, little bit of amber production, and we've still got some disruption going in there as well. I like it a lot. Now, moving into Shadows, what we really want to see is amber control. That is what Shadows does. And again, it's not the only thing that it does, but there is a bit of it here. What we do have is the 2 signature cards, Too Much to Protect and Bait and Switch. Now, Bait and Switch used to be so much better than it is now. Unfortunately, it's taken a little bit of a tumble. Nowadays, it can steal 2 amber. If your opponent's got more amber than you, you steal 1. If they still do, you steal another. Used to keep going until they didn't have more than you, but unfortunately, boo, etc. But you can steal 2 now if your opponent's got enough. Far better nowadays, and still in the deck, is Too Much to Protect. Too Much to Protect steals all but 6 of your opponent's amber. Now, one of the things I adore about this, of course, is that your opponent can have 8 amber while you've got 14, and you still steal all but 6 of their amber. And that's what's so beautiful about this. It doesn't depend on how much amber your opponent's got, it's purely down to how much amber you've got, and this is great stealing, ladies and gentlemen. Like, really over-the-top good stealing. It's one of the... well, it's probably the best stealing card we've got in the game at the moment, but it's certainly one of the best amber control cards. I adore it. Now, in terms of other stealing, it's not quite so good. We do have a Nerve Blast that steals an amber and then deals 2 damage. And we have Relentless Whispers here, which is the opposite of Nerve Blast. You deal 2 damage, and if it destroys them, then you get to steal an amber. Cool. We do also have no other stealing. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little bit sad. Nah, only joking. We have got Dodger that steals an amber when you fight, but that really is it, unfortunately. That's all that you get. Never mind. But we have still got a bunch of other really nice cards in here as well. We've got Pawn Sacrifice. Now, you do have to sacrifice one of your own creatures, but then you get to deal 3 damage to each of 2 creatures, so I'm totally down with that. We have Master Plan, which is an artifact whereby it's got an amber bonus, and when you play it, you put a card from your hand face down underneath it, and then it's got an Omni ability whereby you can play the card and sacrifice it. Kind of like archiving, but not entirely. Speed Sigil. There are 2 of these in here, and it means that the first creature played each turn enters play ready. Also gives you an amber bonus. Now, this is not just yours, it's also your opponent's. It can backfire fairly spectacularly, but it's still very, very cool. And we got 2 copies of Special Delivery, gives you an amber bonus, and it's got an Omni ability, so any turn you like, you can sacrifice it, deal 3 damage to a flank creature, and if that flank creature is destroyed, you get to purge it, which is very nice. And then 1 copy of Silvertooth, who enters play ready. Redundant if there is a Speed Sigil down, except it's really not, because you play your first creature down ready, then you play Silvertooth, and Silvertooth enters ready as well. That's going to get you some extra creature use there. This is a really strong deck. I love the logo suite. It is phenomenal. Dis does a bit of disruption, but it's so much more than that. Shadows has a bit of stealing, but it's so much more than that. Some really good decks just do what the deck does, i.e. Shadow steals, etc. That is not exactly what we see here, but what we see here is all of the houses do what they should do, but they all have a bunch of other options as well, which I think make this a phenomenal deck. And given that it went and won a Vault Tour, I think I'm pretty justified saying that. But I would very much like to know what you think about this, ladies and gentlemen, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Keyforge and any others that take our fancy. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio if you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.